picture, we have a personality. We don't care if we, like in this song, talking about honor, and in the other song, we talking as thieves.
This is our maker. The reasons are Sa'alik Medical. Not medical, they is good.
For the people who have one picture, they're gonna be talking about one subject or like one stream. But we wanna like give the whole pictures here to get from our identity.
أول ما يتوزع الكمبيوتر أو الإنجليزي الرسوم الإنجليزي هذا الشيء الذكي أمامنا بالتالي يعني الإنسان سميث. Everybody is working today.
For me, we don't have if it's political rap and rap, it's solid. For 6 years we've been working and it's still step one for us. It's still we just started. We just started. And the first thing that you learn in this thing, there's nothing called family. It's a life that we put to survive. That's mean we are together long that we are stand up. Family, if you are falling, we're gonna like grab your back. If you need anything, we're gonna help you. But in the streets, not. As long as you are strong, as long as you have mind to think, as long that you are powerful enough to stand in the street, you are one of us, part of the street. But if you fall down, you're gonna fall down alone. So I kind of used to stay this way. It's not me, and at some point, okay, I've been depressed. I felt like, fuck it, I don't like look at anything. After that, I put this part of my life in the Sa'alik project. Thank God, just alhamdulillah. God put me in place that sometimes I was a thief, sometimes I was the one who's catching this thief, and sometimes I was the one who been stolen. I've been there, not just seen. You got me? So this is for me to be a big brother for so many people. And Project Sa'alik, that what I love in Project Sa'alik, as I told you, without Sa'alik, man will steal from Sewadi, Sewadi will chase mine and shoot him in his legs. But we became brothers because of this project. If somebody of us fallen, we will help him to get back. And if we can't help him, we're gonna continue in his name. That's how Sa'alik's brother worked. تدريب يا معا بزلك
since I think 6 years student, and I checked out a job from the college, then went back. But the main thing was the studio, the music. Original name, the original Sa'alik, were a big community who's taken from the rich, beautiful, and sure of. Yeah, and it touches our way of life, and reflects to it. So there's the opposite of the rich people who steal from the poor people. Opposite of everything.
The mainstream way of life, you know.
Way of life, yeah, in a good way. I do this so I explain something. We don't artistic things, but when our music starts to bring money, we will buy it. Any touch that will broke down. Okay? Yeah, just stay away. What gives me the passion, what gives me will to stay, I want to show the people that you can succeed in anything, no matter what it was, no matter what your religion or what your culture says about it. If you love something, you can succeed in it.
The beautiful thing about hip hop music generally is there's the part that you have to put all of your money in it. As we're young, there's the danger of the drugs, the danger of so many things. You know, to buy drugs and stuff like that, but we can't afford it. Why? Because when I'm making music, I have to buy these things. But when I remember these days, it was heaven. Like, you didn't eat for 2 days, but you are so excited to make music. Yeah, and at the same time, you can't wake up because you are so, not too lazy, you are so hungry at the same time. So our audience is gonna be here because we practicing for the stage. So this one has so hook is كل القادة وعني مكتوب فشوف من عيني. You don't need to say myself. You just have to say شوف من عيني. See from my eyes. شوف من عيني. Let's like without the beat. Yeah. صعب تدخل عم صعب براحتك معاك. unless you be treated as a human being. At a certain point, we got the occupation on us, we kill ourselves. You get to some point that you find out that you are just here for the city to eat your dreams, and for some politician just waiting you to die, to keep your name, and that's it. Your life is not for you. Your chance is not for you. We all believe in God. We all believe in so many things, like honor, that like friendship, like so many things that like that is gonna disappear. For real, like I hate to say that I'm a Palestinian, I'm proud to be a Palestinian, but this is my تجربة. This is my experience. That's why I say it a lot. Because in the news you only see some type of people, politicians, terrorists, and the music industry you gonna see musicians. But in our lyrics, in our definition of art, we put all the people who fall down from the news, fall down from the art, fall down from all the other stuff, and we became who we are. Sadiq. I'm trying to put a point. Just don't forget us. Not us as they see the minds already. No, don't forget us as a people.
Listen, I don't see myself as a rapper. I see myself like a translator for the people, from the people. I do not see myself as an artist, whatever, musician. We are not artists. I'm just a translator of feelings, perhaps. I know some things, so I'll do it for this people.
It's not just our name, it's a movement. Anybody that is big in the good side and bigger than the evil side is a side.
The most stupid thing that you're gonna say that your song is revolutionary, but you don't have revolution in the street. That's why we keep repeating the same line. The music can't give you freedom. You have to take it. See, I'm skinny actor, I don't know how to use a gun. I won't say I'm a warrior, I'm a musician, I'm a writer. Maybe we'll make chains, maybe they will tell us, but I know when it gets to that point, I know that we won, we already won. Like the whole system is afraid from one skinny man like me, who just talk, do nothing but talking, and give chances to his brothers.
easy to be heartbroken because of reality you witnessed. Of course, like you can come to a situation of injustice, you recognize it, you think it's injustice, you leave heartbroken that, in this time of human evolution, we treat each other like shit. What's difficult is to understand that this reality is intentional, that this reality is planned, that this reality is systematic. What I'm interested in is understanding. And the more people get educated, the better. My name is Baha, and I was born and raised for a family of Palestinian refugees in the town of Bethlehem. I started feeling like how frustrating it is to communicate my life to people who've never been here and always feel like they know better about me than I know about myself. You had people who thought they know about this place simply because they would watch international media. So you have a lot of people who are looking at me thinking I'm either a terrorist or an oppressed person. Both ideas were kind of incomplete. And so like, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to encounter modern kind of ignorance about Palestine. The only way for me to explain to people what the Palestinian population is going through is not by traveling the world and telling people like what Palestinians are struggling through. There's the issue of actually coming back home, bringing people, encouraging people to come in. Because you understand, like when you see it the way it is, no amount of media and propaganda is going to take away the images of what you saw.
In the year 1898, this is the picture you will see. Right?
I wouldn't say that what I do is involved in tourism in any ways. Even though some people might mistake what I do to be like a tour guide, but it's not, it's education. If you look there in the year 1996, you will see a mountain covered with more than 70,000 evergreen trees.
That giant is what you see in front of you.
So we try to expose reality the way it is. We don't go into politics, even though we are labeled political activists or whatever. We try to be honest in describing reality. We do our analysis based on who's in control, which is the state of Israel, how the Israeli control impacts Palestinians, and how it impacts us Israelis.
The image of Palestine, as you said, is about war, is about occupation, is about making our streets unclean. But what is the reality? It's a community that wants to live. From as a whole, I do upcycling and I'm interested in environmental and social projects. It's a very normal life. Put a camera in the middle of in a city or town and let it film everyday life. It will show normal life that can happen anywhere where there is no occupation. There is killing, there is house demolition, there is like suicide bombers. There are many real news that happen, but the real life does not get to anywhere. Occupation is here. But everybody is afraid of the tank. Now, which side is the tank? But good news is happening every single moment. Stuff that are thrown away, if it was wood or steel or plastic, it's considered trash. And what do you do with trash? You throw it away. What if we don't? In the understanding of inner design, there is nothing called trash. It's called waste. And the basic point is that people throw away things that they don't need anymore. It doesn't mean that it's not functioning. It means that people have no interest in them. So we collect them and redesign them or reset them. And the idea here is about like reintegrating waste back into the life of people.
This is basically a whole toaster. This is the toaster, but outside, with all the settings, everything. Mostly when people come to ask for like accessories, like the ones I make from forks or cutlery, or like they ask for lamps, I offer them the chance to be able to make their own. We kind of try to bring information, to sell people information more than sell them a product. And the real product actually we invest in is actually the information itself, more than the material or the thing. Basically, the major enhancement for me, the major push for me to keep going into an upcycling, the effect it has on people, and like how it can actually socially change people. Like you give people potential to be ahead of generalizing, to look at things in different ways, to try to be criticizing your own ideas, like to bring something new. Not only regarding the environmental issues.
In Palestine, we have about 23 different civilizations that have moved over this place over the past 5,000 years. None of them age around. Most of them left a bad story because every civilization turns into an oppressive regime at some point. The same story happened with the Romans, with the Ottomans, with the Crusaders. The same story happened with all other civilizations that came through here. What the state of Israel is doing differently is that it's an oppressive regime from day one. Throughout the area of the West Bank, we have more than 700,000 Jewish Israelis, all of which are allowed free Jerusalem. The God's narrative is Israeli. And then you have 3 million Palestinians living in the West Bank. None of them is allowed free access to Jerusalem. Why? Because they're not Jewish Israelis. You have to come to the conclusion that there's something entirely wrong going on here. And there is.
All what you see is like a beautiful valley with no people in it. So it's a land without people for you, the driver, or the Israeli sector, who belong to people without God. This is how they make us invisible.
Most of these conflicts around the world, not only here, are shown to be so complicated for everyone, so everyone gives up and no one feels responsible about what's going on in the world. It's not my problem, it's not in front of my door. I wouldn't even call it a Palestinian-Israeli conflict because it's not. A conflict means two sides, you know. There are no two sides here. An Israeli soldier can come now, kick us out, take everything you have, or shoot me. No one will care. When you see that map that explains like what Palestinians are controlling in Palestine now, all these like spots on the map, it's not true. We control nothing here.
And one of the main things the Israeli government wants is the land. Families that have been inheriting their property over years and years and years find themselves facing the mighty power of the only nuclear power in the Middle East that really wants to rob them of their land. Now, of course, the state of Israel justifies that robbery by saying, well, God gave us this land, or the Palestinians left it, or the Palestinians do not exist. How to encourage these people to stay on their land? You support them with help them cultivate it, you support them with bringing in volunteers to come and help these people staying on their land, harvest their olive trees, plant trees, renovate their water cisterns, rebuild some of their destroyed sheds and homes, and so on.
We have high level of tolerance for this. We don't think anything. Because it's a survival technique, basically. It's a very much survival technique. And this is how we grow. We grow with value. There's so much value for life that we can actually laugh about the creation.
In every Palestinian household, there's a story that worth to be told. In the city of Hebron, it was 17th December 2012. There was a story that spread around about a deaf Palestinian kid. He was coming home from his school where they celebrated his birthday that day. And then he took toys and that he got as gifts. On the way home, there is an Israeli checkpoint. Usually you go through that checkpoint at home. And that day in particular, one of the soldiers decided to call him. The kid ignored the soldier. Because, when you're deaf, you can't hear Israeli orders. Well, the soldier thought that kid dared to ignore him. So what did the soldier do? He ran after the kid and started beating the shit out of him. And what are the consequences of what he did? No consequences whatsoever. It's it's not even sorry, it's not, I mistook you for ignoring me, or. So the kid was left, his skate was all over the place, his toys were also all over the place, and he got angry. He runs towards the same soldier, and as he was running towards that same soldier, a female soldier thought the kid was under threat, so she shot that kid 6 times in his body. in your situation is reality in ours. You try to apply this reality on any other society around the world, and you will find the exact same outcomes.
An Israeli
Minister of Defense once said that he would license a Palestinian to fly a fighting jet before he would license a Palestinian to become a tour guide. There's one thing that the state of Israel cares about very much, which is their reputation. Because from an Israeli military perspective, you can easily shoot down a fighting jet, but you can never shoot down the Palestinian reality that a foreigner comes in and gets exposed. Tourism in Palestine is completely dominated by the Israeli government. Anybody that wants to have access to any Palestinian community has to have the Israeli approval. We have no control over who can come and visit us. Of course, you have many Palestinians that benefit from that kind of tourism, but for them to benefit from it, they need to give up one very simple thing: their Palestinian identity. You can come on an Israeli tour package done by an Israeli tour company, and then you can actually travel through and not see a Palestinian in your entire journey. Because like once again, we are ignored all the time. We are inspired by our kind of like our history that oppression is not sustainable in this land. We encourage people to keep coming because that's the only way for us to go forward. What we are struggling towards is justice and equality for everyone.
I don't really see what the world is understanding, like the people of the world are understanding their power or their ways. I think we're kind of ready to be globalized, but we're not choosing to be. We're still seeing each other as nationalities. And if you look at the planet from anywhere else, you don't see borders. These nationalities are based on border drawing, and border drawing happened from colonialist systems. Maybe it's a culture thing, but culture is never nationalist. And the most efficient is what they don't actually work use for fire cooking. For fire cooking, they're thicker and bigger. So like we kind of managed to understand our lives apart from the occupation and managed to know that like we have to live under something we never chose. But it doesn't mean at the same time that we forget about our life, our times. Just wait for it. In my imagination, maybe 5 pieces of this would make you a cup of tea. And nothing cup would go yet. Let me see if I have a kettle.
my lifetime. It's still a young form of oppression, it's 70 years. But at the end of the day, like, not being able to reap off the fruits of the struggle, let's say, should not stop us from continuing the struggle with it. There's if you fight, you might lose. If you don't, you've already lost. You know?
Let me at the beginning say that escaping the place is not an option anymore. Each one of us doesn't matter, from the city of Palestine, from the village, from the refugee camp, from wherever we are. Each one of us has a story with the land. We know how to walk on our mountain. We know what is the fruits. We know what is the water. We know the seasons of each fruit. We know that now the rain came because this rain, traditionally in Palestine, is to wash the olive trees to make them ready for picking. They call it the olive rain. 2 weeks and it's followed with every leaf. You start bearing olive trees in our villages. Each year they bear hundreds of olive trees. This tree here, before you and me even. This tree here before the idea of Israel and Palestine. We have olive trees here 5,000 years old now. You are building it. You are not only damaging us, forget about us. People are getting killed everywhere in the world. There is no good blood and bad blood. But the environment, this is Mother Earth. You are killing the earth itself. You are playing with the rules of the earth. It's not about having the right or not. It's about respecting the land or not. And those people, with all respect to them, you fondle the land, you disrespect the land. And if you disrespect the land, let the land talk. The land knows how to talk, not to worry.
I get different reactions every time. How did you start? Who pushed you to do this? And are you supported? Are you limited? And which boundaries do you face because of this field? But it's amazing how you feel that you leave your print in the mind of these people who think that that's weird, that you're dancing. But as I said, the most important thing, the way that you show them that, yes, I'm Arab, that's to be a woman, dancing, and even though I'm not fully supported, I'm doing it because I want to and I love to and I can. Introducing, okay, my name is Rad Taha, and I'm a Palestinian dancer. I live in Jerusalem, Bethlehem. I'm 21 years old. And yeah, that's it.
When I was 10 years old, I really wanted to do dancing. I was a freaking little girl who just wanted to sneak into the ballet classes. And then my mom noticed this and she talked to the teacher. This is how I started.
We had annual shows every year, and every time I finished the show, I was super excited to see my mom's face and how she react every time. They were always so proud to see me on stage, and it's nice to see like how her reaction changes now, like when I grow up and I have different messages to share with the people on stage, and I'm more independent as a dancer and as a choreographer. I mean, every performance has a different meaning for me. It adds something else to my life and to my experience. So it's kind of a whoa question, but I think when I performed the solo, when I prepared for the festival in Ramallah, when I performed in the academy, it was a strong message. It gave a strong message to the people and to my colleagues in the academy. Because for them, when they saw something on stage with an Arabic text, and it was really strong, and some of them came to me and they were so emotional because they understood what I'm talking about and they felt it. And this means a lot to me, like to deliver the message, and when the people receive it, this is the most important thing for me. And I also get a lot of support, like in the academy, and not everyone thinks the same way. Some people are, like some of the teachers really push me forward, and my identity means something for them. I'm working with a musician, I'm working with a percussionist. It's a piece that I made 2 years ago in the academy for my final project. It discussed the subjects of identity and confusion and these simple questions that usually people answer them in a second. But sometimes when you think about it here, it's stucky, sometimes take a long time to think about it, and it's harder for you to answer these questions. We are also working other than that on the subject of the relationship between the music and dance. To support each other and not to cover each other. I think the chemistry between us is an important thing that helped us. And we're really excited to perform in the festivals. And I'm so proud and happy that I'm student that I'm on there, it's an honor. Palestine is the patient beauty that has been the most patient ever. From its people, from the occupiers, from everyone who ever tried to harm it. Seeing it still alive and breathing, that's how I think about Palestine. In my eyes, it's beautiful and chaotic. Chaotic place to live in. Not only politically, but socially and people, the way of thinking, the way of living. I think there are a lot of hidden things that make people really attached to it. But I really love it. I love walking in the streets and I love the shops there. I feel like this is the heart of the comfort, Whenever I enter the city, I get a different energy. I feel like this is a place that I need to heal. This is a place that I should fight for. I feel that the genre itself is an essential point of this conflict. I just feel the importance of this view that I'm saying, And just look at it and just think about we still own this somehow actually. We still own this genre. And actually whenever I see such a view, I really feel the beautifulness of Jerusalem. Because, when you live in a place, you don't usually think about, this is beautiful, wow, I'm living in a beautiful place. But when you see these views, that makes you rethink about the way you're attached to your hometown. It's a weird feeling, although I go through this every day, every time I see such a scene, they have to go and walk in the street with their flag and shopping, and no one will tell them, don't do this, or what are you doing, or especially today, we're all holding the flag and chanting for the Independence Day. It's painful for me, it makes me feel like I'm not supposed to be there,
I don't remember my life was normal for one day, living in Jerusalem. The city is important for so many reasons, for so many kind of people, for so many backgrounds and culture and religions. And since the whole world is watching you, since the whole media in the world are always passing through here and watching you battle, you have to do well. If you don't do well, you will be squeezed immediately. So it's really difficult, as I told you, even to tell you a story in Jerusalem. But at the same time, you can't believe how great it is to live with a cause, to live with a message, to live with something you are fighting for. And this thing is really big, man. The whole world is divided here. Here is the center. It's not the center because I really wanted to be the center. Even if I'm not Palestinian, I would belong to this cause, you know. I would belong to those people. So that's why actually, or from here came the idea of Palestine filming. First rule, in film club, you have to always talk about film club. Showing the world that we are suffering is not what we want. This is already the whole world. To fictionize the cause, not to document. We are fed up of documenting a story. We want to fictionize it. We want to live it. We want to imagine it. This is an international language. The whole world knows. Filming and visualizing things is a window. So I basically decided to take this window, to invest my energy in this one. In the Battle of Palestine that never ended, I found my group in this army of Palestinians. My group is the filmmakers. We are fighting through films. And we are telling our stories. This is our way of fighting. We are not shooting bullets. We are not throwing stones. We are fighting through visualizing our story.
One thing. Alright. You see? House. The next one. I can fully do this.
Despite all the disappointments that I sometimes go through, I think I'm a person with a lot of hopes. I have high hopes of things. I hope it becomes real one day, standing on this occupation. In the street, you know? I think that's the first thing I would do. And just run because like
It's boring to hold on to a dream. You can hold on one time, 2 times, 3 times, but then what?
Our dreams is tiny and little, and it's matching our space. We don't have space. We have small space, so we dream little. We don't dream big. You know what I mean?
it's still so beautiful. I knew why they occupy the whole place. And when I visited there, because it's a beautiful place, rich, blessed. But who cares what I think? I'm a pirate from a world that does not exist anymore.
If you ask me, I would say something a little bit romantic. Is my dream is to dream big. Regardless, checkpoints, regardless, occupation. Put Palestine in front of your eyes. The Palestine that you want. And keep on going. Regardless of anything.
They say the storm has been eased. A dawn is promised with his skin. I love sleeping around south from the comfort of the wind. Against the hills, in gentle sunlight, a house is inside out. Possessions cast across the gut, tell the repeated matches all night. Strong as that death fall, mama's cry came. Did you hear? Last night I shot my 12-year-old boy in the rain. And on it goes. And still fall, waiting for some more.
We'll just leave you with that and let you know there's tea outside. So please head out and help yourself so that you like some tea. If you stay inside, please bear with us. We're going to set up a panel discussion.
Struggle for Palestine is important for us in India today. Joining us for this panel discussion is a group of very exciting and excellent speakers. First up, we have Pranav Pingal, who is a director, producer, and the founder of Mirage Media. He hails from Hyderabad. Oops, Pranav is not here. Okay, he's here. Okay, great. Okay. He has a master's in film and television from Bristol University, UK, has won more than 22 awards from around the world, and has created over 30 documentary films around the globe and also produced 2 web series. Second, we have Ismail Khalidi, who is a playwright, theater director, and screenwriter, who was born in Beirut, Lebanon, to Palestinian parents and raised in Chicago. His plays include Truth Serum Blues, Foot, Dead Are My People, and many others. He has adapted 2 novels for the stage with Naomi Wallace, one on Ghassan Kanafni's Returning to Haifa and The Corpse Watcher. He's also co-edited Inside Outside 6 plays from Palestine and the diaspora. Third, we have Dr. Rohan Gideon, who is a professor of theology and ethics at United Theological College in Bangalore. And fourth, we have Reverend Emmanuel, who is quite popular here, I feel, so I don't think he needs any introduction. So I thought we could have a moderated discussion for about 30-35 minutes. I'll ask a question each to each panelist, after which I'll throw open the discussion so that we can have a more freewheeling discussion, during which you can pose your questions to all 4 of the panelists we have. I thought we could start with Pranav. Pranav, am I audible? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Super. So I thought we could first kickstart this discussion by congratulating Pranav and his team for putting together this excellent documentary. It's no easy feat to have achieved this, especially at the West Bank. This is in fact the second time I'm watching and moderating a panel on Pranav's documentary. He must be thinking there's nobody in Bangalore, but there are many others. And I must say I was as impressed and taken by the documentary the second time as I was the first time I watched it. And I thought, Pranav, it would be wonderful to hear from you about the journey of making this film. Palestine is a long way from India, and before October 7th, not really a topic of discussion. I wasn't taught about Palestine in school. And ironically, the only way I learned about Palestine in college was because we had an Israeli center. We had a center for Israeli studies, which was specifically dedicated to Israel, and that's how I learned of Palestine. So, Pranav, I thought it would be interesting if you could walk us through what led you to make this documentary in the first place, what drew you to Palestine, and what you aim to communicate to your audience, specifically by focusing on the stories of these 5 wonderful artists we saw on screen today.
I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you very clearly.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for having occupied screen again in Bangalore. I think primarily there have been many reasons as to why we decided to make Occupied showcase a huge amount of pain, suffering. There's always a huge amount of death, huge amount of violence that is around just the entire region of the West Bank. And during India, at the time when this come, I have most number of friends of mine who are there. Is it clear, is it audible, or is it echoing?
It's good, it's clear, Pranav. You can go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, we were primarily going to a rough phase at that stage in our own political system, where minorities were being, there's a huge amount of violence that were happening to minorities in and around India. And we had done a lot of work in the social sphere in terms of literacy, young orphans, rape and prostitution. I think the most worrying thing as to why one of the things that was a trigger is when a best friend of mine decided to sort of, you know what, I'm planning on having one step out of the country. And that sort of triggered me to say that, okay, why is someone actually living in a country, in his home country, deciding to have a leg out? And I felt that as a filmmaker, the only way that we contribute is to art. And we decided to pick a story that was so far away and the narrative had already been told in a very different way, to a huge amount. It was just a narrative that I sort of somehow didn't anymore. And I just wanted to explore a little bit myself. And funny enough, I met a fixer at an airport in Vietnam. He said, you know, you've been thinking about making this band film in the West Bank, and I have a bunch of artists that you'd like to meet. But I said, you know, anyone that meets at an airport basically would say, yes, someone will come and stay with you. But you know that both go whenever you meet at the airport. On WhatsApp, we were having a conversation, and he said, I told him, I've saved enough money now, but I am making this film, and we want to make the film through the eyes of the artist. And that's how we sort of went to Palestine and decided to sort of take that leap of faith. I think, one second, the signal is really, yes, okay, this is so much better. So, thanks to Charlie, we actually made our time when we actually reached there. We didn't really think that it was going to happen, but a couple of months later, we spoke to him. I gave him a bunch of characters that we'd like to shoot, and we made enough money and bounced, and we reached. We booked our flight tickets, we got our visa surprisingly, and we just landed at this real magical place where I've never met more phenomenal, more welcoming, more kind, loving people than what's been exposed to us through the media. And that's how it happened.
Thanks, Pranav. Pranav, was there something else you wanted to add?
No, I think I just let everyone else pitch in and then if there are any questions.
Okay, super.
Because the signal is a bit low, so I don't know whether there's a bit of a lag, so I can't really.
No, you're quite clear. It's quite clear. Yeah. Okay, great. I just wanted to shift over to Ismail and ask him some questions about the theme of resistance, because central to the struggle for Palestine and for Palestinians around the world has been the concept of resistance, and it is a word that has courted and continues to court the most controversy, not least because it goes beyond this frame of presenting oneself as a perfect victim, which is a term that Mohammad Al-Kurd has recently released a book on as well. And Palestinian resistance has been multifaceted and varied since the beginning, but it's often been reduced to being understood narrowly, mainly by the West, through just the concept and frame of armed resistance, which is then manipulated to appear as terrorism, despite armed resistance being legal under international law, and it's somewhat used to justify this Israel's right to self-defense. So I wanted to ask you, Ismail, how do you feel that the term resistance has been understood and also has evolved since October the 7th? And also perhaps shed light on different forms of popular resistance that Palestinians have evoked over the years. I would also be interested in your thoughts on how different forms of resistance interact with each other. For example, how would resistance through art interact with armed resistance, for example? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Great. First of all, thank you to the organizers and to the film. I know you had a lot of challenges to get this event on its feet, so I'm sending you appreciation and solidarity. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I think the film, definitely kind of gives us a glimpse into the varied forms of cultural resistance that exist in Palestine, in the West Bank, but also Gaza. I mean, I think there's a little bit more attention to the cultural resistance in the West Bank, but very few people take part because of the kind of propaganda about Gaza specifically, but also because of the media blackout. We don't think of Gaza in the West, at least, and I think in much of the world, because of this media blackout, we don't think of Gaza as this amazing place full of poets, historically, full of painters and artists and doctors and scientists, and I think that, that is an important thing to really remember, and many of those people have been assassinated and eliminated and liquidated over the past 15 months, as we know, including journalists and hunters. And I think, sadly, we've come to the point, as in many settler colonial situations, where simply to exist, simply to treat your nations, simply to go back to your house and rebuild it, to cultivate whatever crops you can from your destroyed fields is an act of cultural resistance. Passing on stories, remaining connected, whether you're in diaspora, in the camps, whether you're internally displaced or imprisoned, remaining attached to that land is a form of resistance. So I think it is important to point that out. I mean, in terms of, one of the things I do in my work, I try to do, is also to both Tennis and Maoist about the revolt, the Palestinian revolt against the British in the 1930s. And I think one of the reasons I wrote that play is because we're able to celebrate the Indian struggle for independence against Britain. We're able to openly celebrate Irish rebellion and resistance against British colonialism, for example. But no one talks about the fact that one of the longest revolts against the British was in the 30s by the Palestinians. So, I think it is really important to put the Palestinian struggle to kind of take it away from this war on terror narrative of Islamic extremism and terrorism and barbarians fighting the civilized West, which is obviously nonsense, and kind of realign Palestinian resistance in this 100-year-long at this point anti-colonial struggle for sovereignty and for liberation, which started against the British and which has then continued against the Zionists, who, by the way, the Israeli army was trained at the feet, the early manifestations of the Israeli army, trained at the feet of the British army. The same generals who employed tactics of terror and destruction in India and Ireland and Kenya and South Africa and elsewhere. And so I think once we put Palestine within the context of that legacy, the kind of various forms of resistance, whether armed or cultural, start to make a lot more sense. And I think one of the main aims of Zionism, of US imperialism, is to disassociate Palestine. Palestine is an exception. And the fact is that I think right now Palestine very much is a kind of crucible and a laboratory of subjugation and control and occupation and extermination and censorship and all of these forms of technological surveillance that are being exported around the world. So, to get back to the question, I think Palestinians have shown, just the same way that what the Israelis are doing is a laboratory for how to subjugate, I think we have to also look at Palestinians as this laboratory of how to resist, how to circumvent oppression and subjugation, how to persevere in the face of it, whether that's as the artist in the film, through street art, through music, poetry, through education, or through armed guerrilla warfare, which has always been, as long as settler colonialism has existed for the last 600 years, whether in the Americas or in Africa or in Asia, that has always been part of the counter to that violence has been guerrilla warfare. And so these things, of course, if you look at Palestinian society, they're constantly interlaced. And whether people choose to do it by taking up arms or by taking up paintbrushes, as the artists in the film show, they very much consider themselves part of the same struggle. And the last thing I'll say is, part of that extermination, part of the kind of package of genocide and ethnic cleansing is, epistemic is the destruction of knowledge, is the intentional destruction of a society, of culture, of memory, whether that's rewriting and reading maps, whether that's ethnically cleansing villages, whether it's silencing through assassination or censorship artists, whether it's stealing cuisine and culture and calling it the colonizers' own. I think all of these are forms of trying to dismember and erase culture. And so every form of recouping that, of renewing it, of re-engaging with it and sharing it with the world is a form of a deeply important form of resistance.
Thank you so much, Ismail. I think this also talks to what...
Sorry, you're still muted.
Okay, great. Okay. Is this better? Yes. Okay. No, thank you so much. I was just mentioning that I think this. Okay. who is the Colombian Prime Minister, said that, the genocide and barbaric acts that we're seeing unleashed against the Palestinian people now is what awaits those who are fleeing the south because of the climate crisis. And he says that what we see in Gaza is the rehearsal for the future for those in the global south. So I think what Ismail said about internationalizing the resistance and learning from the resistance of the people in Palestine, I think that was a very, very critical point. Just pivoting to history, I wanted to bring Reverend Emmanuel and Reverend Dr. Rohan into the conversation. One of the ideological planks that undergirds and holds up Zionism is this belief by Christian evangelicals that the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their home in historic Palestine by Jewish Zionists is the fulfillment of this biblical prophecy in which the so-called Holy Land must be resettled with Jewish people in order to usher in the return of Jesus Christ as the Messiah. So it would be great, Reverend, if we could talk a bit about how this ideology within Christianity came to be, if there's been resistance within the Christian faith against this form of Christian Zionism, and in what values and principles has this resistance been grounded in. I was also more generally interested in understanding your thoughts on what kind of theological implications are there when we look at Palestine in the current moment and also the past 100 years. There's no division between what has been happening for 100 years and the current moment. And also what kind of common ground can we build between different religions and secular beliefs at this current moment. So maybe we can start with Reverend Rohan, and then we can move on to Reverend Emmanuel.
I'm really happy to be part of this.
I usually read about movies than watching it. But this time I watched it twice, not just because I was coming here, because I was already told about it and I had watched parts of it. I will start with some personal notes about how I think about it and how I would respond to some of the popular Christian ways of responding to the whole Israel-Palestine issue. My background is in theology. I am a priest and now I teach Christian theology. Before that, my background is in literature and critical theories. So when I started doing my theology, I say all these things because I saw many youngsters, all of us are, and I'm sure that we keep reading about it. We develop analytical mode of understanding things, which I think is absent in the church. And that's my first thought. Christian faithful majoritarily take one clear position. Just as you rightly said, at any cost you had to take the side of Israel. That's largely there. But then there are also, very hearteningly, those who think through it before they take whichever position it is. I mean, even if they take the side of Israel-Palestine, I'll be happy if someone thought through it, developed that critical mode of thinking before you took a clear position. For me, that becomes very important because we need to converse, we need to listen to each other, we need to know what comes from different quarters of the debate before we take any clear position. Whereas in the church, at popular level, there are no conversations, but there are only final answers. I came from a background as that. I was aware of Israel-Palestine wars, clashes. I knew that there was religious background to it, but I did not know how it worked. I tried to put my critical, theoretical analysis to test by reading a little more from both sides of the story. But then I knew, because there was so much of religion into it, there was Jewish religion, then there was Palestinian religion, which I thought was always Islamic. That's how I started it. And then I also knew something about Zionism, which means Christians contributed to flaring up this kind of hatred, enmity, divisions, and polarized way of understanding it. So when I started my theological studies, okay, I'll share a few names, and I tell these names so that we can go back and read, because these are the ones who have influenced my thought, and I hope they influence your thoughts too. As I started reading during my BD time, Bachelor of Divinity, there was a scholar from Israel, an American by name Mark Ellis. Mark Ellis spoke about Jewish liberation theology. Mark Ellis, Jewish liberation theology. Although I did not understand that much during that time, but his perspectives, as I sat through his lecture, it gave me a certain sense of direction. I'll just stop there. But what I also brought to my theology, along with my critical theoretical understanding, was from Edward Said. Those who have read Edward Said, or those who continue to read post-colonial analysis, which will go very well with what we have watched in the movie. Edward Said was not just an academic. He was a musician, if you know him. He was a pianist. He was a choir conductor. He organized choirs and orchestras, including children and musicians from both sides of the border, both Israel and Palestine. He literally did border crossings. He literally tried to understand music from both parts of the world. Behind the music was sense of bringing people together. To use the music jargon, he was trying to harmonize, but he took his idea a little forward. Those who have read Edward Said will know his famous critical point, which is called counterpoint or contrapuntality. I think that's very important that it comes from Edward Said. That was one thing that also helped me to critically read theologies that I received both in the classroom and also in the churches. Counterpoint or contrapuntality is a musical term where when four musicians or when the orchestra plays, at any given point, sometime there will be either harmony or a sense of disharmony. Disharmony is not wrong in musical sense, because there could be counterpoints, each musician speaking her or his thought through what they sing, what they play, or this is also the mind of the composer, to make sure that we are not given only that proper four-note harmony, but there could also be what is called so understood disharmony, which is also part of the journeying. So I brought that into my own understanding, Edward Said's work, and later on a bit of personal experience. I was in Israel, Palestine for 45 days as part of my research studies. That's where I was exposed to day-to-day life situation. We had conversation with biblical scholars from both sides, Jewish, Palestinian, Christian, Islamic, from what generally they call conservative, moderates, and liberals from all religions. These are the traditional categories. We had rabbis for human rights, we had Christian priests for human rights, and then we also had meetings with communities both in Israel and Palestine, and from all on both sides of, or not both sides, on many sides of many borders that have been created. On a personal note, I was taken for a Palestinian because I looked like one. Stereotypes work almost instantly. I still look like one, I think, because that's what many tell me. When I came to UTC, they called me a Malayali. When I went to Israel, they called me a Palestinian. But on my way back, after 45 days, someone checked my passport and says, my name is Rohan Gideon. Gideon is my family name. Gideon, this is there in the Bible. Are you a Jew? My first thought was, I wish they knew it from the first day itself, so that they wouldn't have chased me from shop to shop because I looked like a Palestinian. It was an international group of researchers. We were given a luxury bus to travel all over for 45 days, but because of two of us who looked like Palestinians, we always had to get out of the bus and walk through the checkposts, electronic checkposts that you saw in the movie. I have covered most of the areas that are showed in the movie, and also especially the checkposts. So my perspectives have this sense of experience, but I don't want to highlight my experience because what people in Palestine and Israel are going through are 1,000 times more bitter than what I've gone through. So it's not about me, but it's about the perspective that I want to share. And recently I was in Cambridge for my sabbatical research. The students there were contesting the policies of the university, especially the colleges. Cambridge has some very traditional colleges, renowned colleges. They were forcing the administration to divest. So divestment is one of the crucial areas of understanding when we talk about Israel-Palestine issue. So I bring in these perspectives in my response, and I also continue to preach and discuss. So in all these matters, yes, Christian theologies or Christian faithful in the churches, congregations, mostly all over the world, largely take one side, which is the side of the Israelis, because Bible clearly says Israelis are chosen people. So that is one biblical verse that has been used to take extreme one side. Pray for Jerusalem is another verse from the Bible. Third, when Jesus comes, the next time he would come to Israel part of the land. So, and we are also carried away by what happens in so-called Christian countries, especially Christians in India, so much carried away by what happens in the US, what happens in the UK, what happens in the Christian dominant countries. We don't think, we just believe what they say because they are majority Christians or because they brought Christianity to us and therefore they know things better. So it's okay we blindly or uncritically follow what has been given to us. So what is greatly missing, I think, at the basic level is analytical reading of scripture, analytical reading of what we receive, analytical reading of politics. Christians, I don't know, do Christians read politics in this matter or do they just read?
You do, I do.
We have very good friends who read politics as much as they read Bible, and I'm happy that there is, although this is a small group, I'm happy they still exist. I hope their tribe prosper. So this is the situation that church is in when it comes to Israel-Palestinian issue. So we need more of critical thinkers, more those who converse, more those who come and sit and engage in conversation before taking a position. That's what I would start with, and maybe later I'll add some more thoughts.
Yeah, one of the comedians in the Tamil movie says, வெள்ளை சட்டை போட்டவன் தப்பு பேச மாட்டா, பொய் சொல்ல மாட்டான். On three levels, வெள்ளையா இருக்கிறவன் இல்ல வெள்ளை சட்டை போட்டவன், it's like a person who is fair looking or the one who wears the white shirt will never lie. Okay? I would like to
address this particular question on 3 dimensions, okay? The first time where I heard about Pray for Jerusalem vehemently, we had a lot of American and British Christians on the, this Nandi Durg Road and the Fun World TV Tower Road. A lot of white-looking men and women had these pamphlets when Benny Hinn was in the city. That's the first time. That should be early 2000, sometime then. Yeah, early 2000s. Yeah, that was the first time I was exposed to this idea. I should also confess, as a growing 18, 19 or 20-year-old kid, my prayer was this: God, let me be on your side. Let me kill who's playing against you, at least 100 people, and let me die. I care a damn if I'm in heaven or hell. This was my personal prayer to Jesus. It is in this background I am going to Benny Hinn's meeting. Now, who is Benny Hinn? Benny Hinn is this Zionist Christian. A couple of years back, I think Joyce Myers and Benny Hinn started to confess their wrong teachings to Christianity, and they were saying all that we have spoken so far is so anti-Christ and so on. But however, these were cult figures for Zionist Christianity internationally. Okay, that's where I started my theological journey, by applying myself to Taftey, where laity Christians engaged in theological thinking, theological practice, theological pedagogy, and so on. Okay, that is the first time. But however, I had this strange question of the white man and the white woman. Okay, and in the course of inquiring about Zionist Christianity or Christianity in itself, I realized how, on one hand, Reformation period, the Luther's Reformation, the 15th century Reformation is glorified. It is equally destructive on many levels. In terms with religiosity, it is destructive. In terms with how capitalism grew, in terms with how agrarian communities reacted to it, industrial revolution took over, capitalism took over. Luther has contributed to quite a lot of bloodshed. That has to be confessed. Lutherans won't like it. Even the Lutheran priest Munther won't like it. Okay, but however, we have to say that, see, what is happening in the 14th, 15th, 16th century? Luther is resisting against the papacy, against the Catholic Church. Before that, there is also another great schism, the first great divide, where Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox. All of this is basically centered on the understanding of Jesus, Holy Spirit, and so on. But however, post-Luther Reformation or post-Luther's resistance against the mainstream church of that particular era, he had to play against the agrarian community, who were basically Puritans. In keeping them away, he had to side with the feudal lords of that particular time. Okay, so the initial Zionist idea of Jesus coming was very vehemently pronounced by the Puritan agrarian poor, enslaved masses. For them, that claim was extremely important, to say it is not Pope, it is not Luther, it is more to do with Jesus and it is more to do with Abraham. Okay, we have to understand these deeper historical trajectories that is happening among the Jews, among the Christians, and among the Islams. See, we should also make statements like this. The Christian Puritan at that particular time, when they were speaking about Christian Zionism, that Jesus is coming back, the apocalyptic end, and all of that, with the background of how Islams and Jews were enticed to eliminate the enslaved Christian masses in the European world. The history is too complex, too dark. But however, the emergence is that particular era. And later in the 19th century, 20th century, when the British imperial powers went on to rule over this entire planet, okay, that's where another dark complexity has to be placed. let's come to India. வெள்ளை சட்டை போட்டவன் வெள்ளையா இருக்கிறவன் பொய் சொல்ல மாட்டான். It's a Tamil comical saying, which means the one who looks fair, the one who wears the white garment will not lie. That is a Dalit claim. That is a South Indian Dalit claim. In the context of acute caste slavery, for a Dalit, the immediate savior is the white man and the white woman. Take the upper cloth movement in the extreme south, where the Iravas and Pariyars were not allowed to wear, the women were not allowed to wear the upper cloth and men were not allowed to have mustache, they were not allowed to wear the upper cloth. Who joined them in resistance is the white woman, is the white man. So in the Dalit imagination, whatever comes from the white is right. And the way how the dominant Christianity in a way took advantage of this lenience is, okay, the feudal lord here will have good ties with the European feudal lords. Anyway, the Dalit and the tribals are European emphatic. Whatever comes from them will be blatantly taken. Yeah, we have to place these things outright in the front while we are speaking about Christian Zionism in India. Why? Every Christian, when he or she wakes up, or when they wake up, the first thing that they are exposed to is a Zionist biblical quote. Now you take Zionist biblical quote on Christian calendars. They are filled with so much of misinterpretations, misrepresentations of Hebrew, Greek and so on. So immediately what they have when they begin the day is a Zionist Christian statement. Thereby they have self-actualized so much so that they are faith bound to contribute to. Okay, so it is in this background pastors like me or pastors like Rohan, very few of us tussle against this great tide. And I'm a Dalit pastor. I'm a South Indian Tamil Dalit pastor. So to speak about this truth, even among the Tamil Dalit crowd, it is quite problematic. Now we should also understand the South Indian church in its a lot more darker side as a caste church, as a patriarchal church, homophobic church, lingual church, what not. And all of this is moralized among the pews and the congregation through the whites' imagination of what is life, what is sexuality, what is nationalism, how things are to be, and how all of this is directly connected to the climax, the great apocalypse. Okay, this is how I won't put the blame on the congregation or the people who come to the church. This is how the church was nurtured by its own dominant powers. Look at the way church is ruled today. Who are the ones? They are dominant caste people. They are dominant class people, vehemently homophobic freaks. These are the ones. The other thing that comes to the tag is anti-Islam. Who is your immediate enemy? Tulkangita vechikada. But they won't realize that by the end of the day, Bangalore again is beautiful, okay? Let me say this and end. The Anglo-Indian community or the domicile European or the missionary European whites, no? They had a beautiful connection with the Islams and the Dalits because of meat eating, beef meat eating. All of this is okay, but when it comes to religion and the standpoint of religion and politics and so on, no, Islam. So it's very dark. It's very dark. I wouldn't blame the church or the people because they are nurtured, they are domesticated very, very deeply into this, and it is a greater task for pastors like us. I'm not epitomizing pastors, liberation theology pastors. The third dimension, okay, we draw a lot of inspiration from Latin America. We draw a lot of inspiration from the Cuban revolt. We Tamil Dalits draw a lot of inspiration from the LTTE, kind of thinking. Like even a Catholic priest, Sebastian Kappen, who was the propagator of liberation theology in India, identifies two methodological points to understand the divine itself. You can witness divine only in a situation where the most heinous one and the enslaved one is coordinating for some collective revolution. It is only there you can see God, which inspires me, liberation theology. And at the second point, at the peak of genuine lovemaking is where you see God. Sebastian Kappen, liberation theology. And another liberation theologian, Gustavo Gutierrez, his methodological premise to understand faith and so on. Enough is enough on orthodoxy. Right teaching is a mess. We will speak about orthopraxis, right doing. For you to rightly engage, you will have to have a historical, critical consciousness of what the church and the dominance of the church has done to the entire planet. Okay, this is the beginning.
Thank you both. I think it was an excellent contextualization and also a great segue to the question I was going to ask Pranav, especially your point on liberation theology, because the ideology that I subscribe to is universal humanism. So just I wanted to also pose this question to Pranav, because one of the questions that is asked of any of us who work on Palestine solidarity in India, especially from the progressive and the left circles, is why are you so preoccupied with what is happening in Palestine? You know, when there's so much poverty, there's so much everyday violence in India, why are you so preoccupied? This is a question my mother asks me every day, so it's always on my mind. But I've always been both amused and disturbed by how Palestine is reduced to this international issue, as if the intensity with which we need to care about wrongdoing that is happening in our country is very different from wrongdoing happening in some other country. The death and destruction of anybody, anywhere, should be a cause of concern for each of us as intensely as it is our neighbor or someone else elsewhere. And there's a noted activist who's been working on the issue of Palestinian activism in very long, Achin Vinayak. He was here for a talk a couple of months ago, and he said something very critical, and which has been sitting with me since he said it. He said that all of us straddle multiple identities. Our identities are constantly shifting. I'm a woman, I'm a Telugu, I'm from Chennai, you know, I'm an Indian, but I'm also a person of the world. And in that context, in what he refers to, and in that context he refers that we all have capacity for something called universal humanism. And just as people around the world identified the evil with apartheid in South Africa so many years ago, why isn't that same principle of universal humanism not active in identifying the evil that we see in evil that we see Israel is committing in Palestine? So I'm curious to hear from you, Pranav, about how the documentary has been received by people across India in the many screenings that you've had. And did you have a specific audience in mind while making this film that you hope would be propelled by what they see and would join some kind of resistance to this injustice in Palestine? And also to understand your thoughts on how art can be useful and helpful in creating this idea of universal humanism and influence politics, especially in India. Pranav, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer the first part of the question. Please put it mute yourself. It's a little bit, I think it's echoing on the same time. So I think in terms of the documentary, once it was being made, it was quite a while sort of finish it. But once it went along the world and the board. I think everyone sort of has seen it, watched it, had an immediate connect with the story itself. And everywhere that you had screenings, it is more or less shown that the questions and emotions and the way that it's been sort of filmed it and the way that the stories were coming was very poetic in every angle. So it sort of definitely showcased a different side of what is being told to the world. And at every screening, every film festival, I think you just need to be a little bit human and a little bit caring towards someone else in order to sort of see the kind of pain and suffering one is going through. And the film is not, we never wanted the film to sort of showcase strong visuals showcasing the amount of pain that they were going through, but whatever visuals that we chose have been chosen so that someone can understand with the concept of how less is more. With what little that we showcased, it's enough for someone to move, it's enough for someone to get moved by. Now, there's a small scene where a gentleman is screaming on top of the rooftops near the Kalamet checkpoint. Now his entire life, after his home has been broken, his entire life is in a suitcase. But despite all of that, he would still have a smile on his face, go to his friend, have a cup of tea. Now, I could not imagine how someone could just switch from a circumstance like that and just sort of think, okay, fine, today this will happen to me, tomorrow I'm going to reinvent myself. That sort of energy, that sort of positivity sort of impacted everyone at every screening, every film festival, every place that we went to. Because we knew that while we were making this film, it's going to be hard. It was never, the film was being made because we felt that this is a story, I felt that this is a story that needs to be told in this particular way. But what we received through Shadi and through the characters that we met, like every line that they say is poetic. It wasn't something, you can ask someone questions, but for them to answer in a certain way, coming from their heart, very difficult. There are no retakes in this. For someone to speak so poetically, so beautifully, and describe their situation there, it's enough for someone sort of get a strong reaction. And through the film, I think it's very important for us to realize that they are just like you and me, but in a very, very, very different circumstance. They're human at the end of the day. And it's as filmmakers, as storytellers, and visual storytellers, it's a job to tell the most difficult story. You can't just, at least for me, that's the kind of understanding that we have is you have to tell these kind of stories. There's no other way. There's no other way. If your art is filmmaking, your art is poetry, your art is writing, your art is singing, you got to let the world know when something's going wrong. You can't just sit back on the fence and see it happen. And the other question that you were asking is that there are a lot of things happening in India too as well. But there are a lot of things, there's a huge amount of problems all around the world. If there's a cause that needs justice and if there's something that you can do for it, why not? If you think that something wrong is going on in the world, you must do it in whatever capacity you can. For us, this was our capacity. This is what we thought we could do. And I think with the universe sort of guided us and sort of put every single hurdle, whatever that we got, every single hurdle already had a solution. So I don't know how there's no other way. The entire team has been shaped, our entire team and their lives was so passionate about the cause that the film came out in that way. Despite being stopped, despite being checked, despite our artists had to be smart and manage on everything. Everything had its own journey, had its own story. But the film was out. The film came out after 5 years of screenings, 5 years at the film festivals, and came out on the best platform in the world. So you need to tell these voices, it's going to be hard, it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, but you must do what you have to do. And in terms of art's role in fostering developers and open it. I think it's extremely important. I think we underestimate the power of what art does and how it sort of is used and how it sort of motivating people to express themselves in the best way possible so that the rest of the world knows what's going on. Some of the best art forms come under, some of the best form of art is created under times of distress. And I think the film and the music, the singing, the dancing, at the background of what the suffering that is going on and the kind of situations that the Israelis are putting Palestinians in, had to be good. Not by showcasing them as barbarians, someone who are uneducated. You have to sort of, there's always another side to the story, you must. If you're going to be unpopular, but so be it. One must voice yourself and sort of do it in whatever way you can. And in terms of the audience, I think there was another part you were asking about this, was there a specific audience? And I felt yes, there is a certain part of the world who thinks that, it's easy for us to brand a certain community in a certain light, in a certain way, by passing comments, by making decisions that are uninformed. It is for them to see and them to decide. The camera is showcasing what the reality is. If you think that this is right, then so be it. That is your decision for you to make. But the film is going to showcase what is happening and you decide whether it's right or wrong. I'm just going to showcase to you, the film is going to showcase to you what is happening. If you think someone should have 500 go-through checkpoints every single day, do you think it's that okay? Do you think that someone can be strip search? You should decide whether that's okay. Do you think someone should have separate roads for Palestinians, separate roads for Israelis? Do you think that's okay? Do you think all of this is normal? I'm just showcasing that I think it's extremely abnormal. I was exposed to different kinds of media where I was consumed it, but I want to see it for myself. And also everyone has a role to play in their own way. For me, the only form that I can sort of express myself and the team can express ourselves is through our art form, which is filming. And there was no other way that we would do it other than through the arts. Because they're the real storytellers, they're the real people who are suffering far more than everyone else is suffering, but someone will be true is through an artist, through their poetry, through their singing, through their dancing. Sorry,
No, not at all. No, not at all. Thank you so much. Just continuing on this theme of artist resistance and Palestinians as artists, I had one question for Ismail. I had recently read two books by Palestinian writer Isabella Hamad. One was her fiction novel Enter Ghost, and the other was a non-fiction piece that she'd written as a speech for the Edward Said Memorial Lecture, which she titled as, Recognizing Stranger. And the two recurring themes in both her fiction and her non-fiction writing is one, wrestling with this predicament of having to write from a place of exile while being denied a homeland, and the other is on how Palestinian artists are forced to constantly present a narrative of having to enlighten and educate a Western audience, and in English, and in a language of the perpetrator. So she asks this in Recognizing Stranger. She asks, how many Palestinians must die for the world to arrive at its epiphany? And is this epiphany itself enough? And she asks if instead what Palestinians can do is penetrate the awareness of the colonizers by decentering them and by talking candidly among themselves. So Ismail, I wanted to know how you approach your art and your activism and the relationship that you have with Palestine as a Palestinian who is currently living abroad and in the diaspora. And also your thoughts on what Isabella Hamad says is this constant duty on the Palestinians to present a narrative to the Western audience to be able to garner empathy.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a hard and long question, but I mean, the answer is difficult to give briefly, but I'll do my best. I mean, I love Isabella's work, I think it's an incredibly difficult question, and I think that it connects to some of the things you guys have been talking about too, about class and privilege as well. So I think that's kind of a more nuanced argument, but I mean, one of the things that I struggle with as an artist in the diaspora is that kind of constant need. Where do you start? How do you penetrate this kind of veil of propaganda, racism, and conditioning? And then how does that affect your art? And if you're constantly engaged in exposition, in trying to appeal to the conscience of the colonizer or the West or the public, and educate them, how does that affect your art? And then if you don't do that, who are you just speaking amongst yourselves, right? And I think, that also brings up a lot of questions about, the role of the artist, many of whom, are, coming out of relative privilege, either in the diaspora or kind of the bourgeoisie. And there's, of course, that's not always the case. And I think the film is very interesting in kind of inside the rappers who are coming from more working class kind of backgrounds and how their approach is different. And so these are incredibly difficult questions about the role of art, the role of the artist, and there's also the need for the artist to make money, right? To make a living, to be able to therefore create more art. And then what do you have to do, and who do you have to appeal to get those grants or get that salary? And that always is very complicated. And so, I do believe that the role of the artist is incredibly important in terms of, in the metropole, as it were, and in terms of convincing and shifting public opinion in the West, in this case, in Europe, in the United States. And that's what I do. I'm engaged in that. I think it's incredibly important. And I also think it's incomplete if it is not connected intimately and unabashedly to the people and the movements on the ground and the least privileged and the most marginalized amongst us. And if it's not inclusive and intertwined with those movements on the ground and with the working classes in Palestine and elsewhere, right? I mean, this kind of privileged echo chamber has its limitations. And there's also many pitfalls, many dangers of being co-opted. And I think, if you look even at just in the West Bank, right, without the collaboration of a kind of bourgeois Palestinian authority elite, the occupation would not be possible to maintain. And so I think we have to look at those elements. And I mean, and I consider myself, a very, relatively art person. So I'm talking to myself as well. If we listen to Remy Fanon, he says you can't reason with the colonizer. You can't change their mind. They don't want this whole, the whole endeavor of colonialism does not operate on reason. It does not react to reason or logic or the humanity of the colonized. And so I think we have to also always keep that in mind, that there might be elements of the metropole in the West that we can convince and shift, and that is important. But at its heart, the colonizer imperialism is not going to suddenly wake up one day because they they saw me or read a play or saw a painting and say, oh my God, these people are humans, they're equal to us. And I really don't believe they will. And just really quickly, I do want to say, in relation to your other question, about why should people care about Palestine? Again, I mean, one thing that I really do believe is that.
No, I think that totally answered my question. Thank you so much. I am conscious of time, so I will probably have one last. Not at all. I think it was. Thank you so much. I would have anyway asked you those questions. I just wanted to end with one last question before I can open it up to a couple of audience, maybe 2-3 audience questions. I think what I wanted to, and maybe we can start with both the reverends here. So at this current moment in time, when we see that the right wing is in ascendance throughout the world, we see what Trump poses as a problem, we see what's happening in Turkey, India, even across Latin America. So considering this rise of the far right, what do you think Palestine portends for the rest of the world? I think, Ismail, you preempted my question and, oh no, we've lost connection. But maybe we can start the conversation here, and when they're back, we can speak to them. But I wanted to ask you, what is the hope for Palestine and what kind of future do you envision for the place and for the rest of us who are invested in the issue?
Okay, I'll speak like a Christian priest and a Christian theologian. I think I'll bring that perspective and I'll stick to it so that we have at least 3 or 4 different views being given for this question. From where can we draw hope for the people of Palestine and for those who claim Palestine as their homeland and home country and as their ethos? From within the church circle, I think we need to start reading scriptures a bit differently from what we are doing now. For someone who has read the scriptures, for example, if someone is a 30-year-old, has read scriptures from Israeli or Israelite perspective for the last 20 years, I think they can dedicate at least 3 years, 2 years or 3 years to read scriptures from the current Palestinian position. Even before you take any position, I will not force anyone to take a certain position. I would only say, as much as you're dedicated to see the present Israel in the narratives of the Bible, the Israelite biblical community, likewise, start reading scriptures. At least dedicate minimum of 2 years, 3 years and start reading. That is because of 2 or 3 reasons, 2 or 3 immediate reasons. And I think that will give some hope for the people of Israel from here. We are cultural nationalists at various levels. Where India and Israel meet is on the level of cultural nationalism. We have our own version of cultural nationalism here, as much as we also subscribe to Christian Zionism. Where we falter while reading the Bible is we think that the biblical Israelite community and the present Israelis are the same in terms of the governance, in terms of certain political ideologies right now. I'm not talking about ethnicity. There are certain continuities, but then there are many discontinuities as well. Whereas in the Bible, we see a lot of theocratic state. God rules. And when you don't see God, who rules? The priests rule, the leaders rule, the politicians rule, the judges rule, the prophets rule. They represented God. So it was largely theocratic society and the voice of God became important. And what Christians do right now, they think that the same has been happening in Israel even right now. Israel claims to be a democratic state, just like India is a democratic state. I don't know why some of you laughed. I like the way you laughed. I really liked and appreciate the way you laughed. That's what we actually need. It claims to be a democratic state, but then it is largely fueled by religious sentiments. Because it happens in India, it happens there. Many of the democratic constitutional principles are explained through religious scriptures. I think that's one of the biggest flaws, and our Christians are not able to see it. If they start re-seeing it, these discontinuities, I think that will help us be in solidarity with the Palestinian at the moment. This is a very short answer, but then I'll have to stop there. The second one, which is again a very quick one, the names Israel and the names Palestine in the Bible are very fluid, which our Christians don't see at all. That's one of the big things. We have Old Testament people here. The name Israel was given to a people or a community. Later it was territorialized, but that territory again was very fluid. It was not rigid territory. Of course, people fought for territories in the Bible. They fought for territories, but that was not the original intention of the name that was given to them. In the Bible it is very clear. You are supposed to take only a certain piece of land and not more. And there are a lot of things to say, but then one of the biggest biblical teachings is, remember that you were slaves, and now that when you are in the position of power, you are not supposed to enslave anyone. That gospel is something that is not being preached or taught in the churches. Thirdly, and very quickly, we also need to see a sense of asymmetrical way of destruction that is happening in Israel, and our Christians are not able to see that one. Our spirituality does not engage with rights. We think that spirituality is something that has to be spoken about outside of rights. Rights cannot be brought in. Rights language cannot be brought in. Justice language cannot be brought in. Constitutional language should not be brought in. Democracy language should not be brought into religion. We still have that religion, what do you call the divide? I forgot the divide. Religion, okay. Secular spiritual rights, dignity. We have lots of divide. I think once we start bridging those gaps, I think that's where we will be able to be in solidarity with victims of this long driven hatred, strife, wars and losses.
Okay, to start with, what is Israel? Israel is the most devious, demonic, terrorizing, terrorist, inhuman, Western plot to the rest of the world. That has to be said. In the emergence of Israel as a nation, there is also a declaration of neo-fascism, neo-imperialism, neo-liberalism, where this particular nationhood will be grounded on all facets that affect life. So in the emergence of Israel coming into existence post World War II means that the war hasn't ended. Look at the way I have to acknowledge the presence of another theologian, another critical person, Reverend Priscilla here. Looking at her, I got reminded of Marcella Althaus Reed, who had the courage to say how masculinized even the Latin American liberation theology was. Whereby the feminist question and the experiential question in the course of theologizing became a lot more intrinsic. Okay, considering all of this, see, I'm not somebody who would want to yield to anything universal in nature, and I'm saying that as a Dalit theologian and as a Dalit pastoral theologian. Why? One of the proponents of Dalit theology, holds on to something called methodological exclusivism. Every person, what was felt by the Tamils in Sri Lanka is exclusive. What is being felt even today by every Dalit man and woman is different and exclusive. What Palestine is experiencing for over 100 years or for over centuries is exclusive. Only in the course of giving prominence to exclusive experience, we will have some course of dignity to that particular community, or else we are neutralizing. That is my take. And but however, Palestine today has become a geopolitical, ethical question. You stand with Palestine, which means you are saying no to Trump, you are saying no to the local governance, then now. This is how I describe the Indian politics, and I care a damn if somebody quotes me. Congress as a party worked hard in building a foundation for an imperialist state and nation. The ruling governance is building a castle, and all the other parties, except for one or two very, very alienated voices, are giving them materials to build this great imperial castle. Okay, so Palestine is exclusive, Dalit is exclusive, Tamil is exclusive, African is exclusive. So these exclusive claims should be respected. It's like free Palestine from the river to the sea also means free from the clutches of caste, free from the clutches of Trump and Musk's kind of coming together, you know. Look at the way this bugger, what's his name, the Trump sponsoring fellow, Elon Musk, he's patronizing archaic Christian literature. He's buying archaic literature. Why? He has something to say about the Ethiopian Bible. Why? Why is Zuckerberg interested in religious literature and so on? Why should he sponsor Trump's entire, what is that particular day where he was pronounced as the president, or what, inauguration? Why should he sponsor that? What is Bill Gates doing? All these three buggers, all these extremely filthy nexus are behind the land. And who epitomizes the question of land is Palestine. Thereby, as a Dalit theologian, as a Dalit, I am with the Palestine, outright, in toto.
Reverend Rohan, you had something to say before I go to Pranav and Ismail.
I will take just a minute. I gave 3 instances on how Christians can rethink their understanding of Israel-Palestine, and especially the context in which we are addressing the issues now. What is going against our solidarity with the victims, especially Palestinian victims, is Holy Land trips, Holy Land tours. That was very clearly shown in the movies. If you are a Christian, and if you are part of the Christian church, and if your parents, if your church members have gone to both Israel and Palestinian region, when they go there, they are given the traditional glorified understanding of the land as it is in the Bible. You go to a spot, your guide will take the Bible out, read the passage related to that land. You go to the next place. Our pilgrims, those who go from here, are not told about violation of rights. They are not told the politics of hatred or the politics of division. They are not told about the loss of lives. They are not told about why there has been the dividing wall. I will tell you something. Many of the people who come from the Holy Land trip look at the dividing wall as Wailing Wall. You know, the Wailing Wall is something where the Jews go, which is part of the temple. Many people do not know the difference between the Wailing Wall and and the wall that is built around Palestinian region to keep the Palestinians away from their own property. They are not told that. What has destroyed the church's understanding of Palestinian issue is Holy Land trips. I think I should tell that. I think that's where, if you're a Christian and if you're a priest, if you're a theologian, I think you'll have to conscientize your church about this. Holy Land trips, I think Holy Land trips is destroying this idea more than the Bible itself. Because this is where people go and see, they walk the land that Jesus land, they come with double super spirituality, they get baptized in Jordan also. But they're not told about anything that is happening here. And that is when I went, I came back home completely disillusioned, and my parents were wondering what actually happened to me after I was in Holy Land for 45 days, while others go for 10 days and come back super spiritual. I was there for 45 days and they wondered what happened to me. So I think this is one thing that we need to bear in mind all the time.
I refuse to go when I was pushed. You should go.
Yes. Ismail and Pranav, we're just wrapping up. I just had one last question for both of you. It's a very simple question. What is your hope for Palestine, and what future do you envision for Palestine? I'm sorry I asked such loaded questions and only give you 2 minutes of time to speak. No, not at all. Ismail, do you want to go first? Ismail, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And it's been a pleasure to participate and to listen to all of the great points that have been made. I mean, listen, I think it's very easy to fall into hopelessness, and I think we're in an incredibly difficult moment in Palestine, obviously, Gaza most specifically, but just also in the camps in Jenin and the northern West Bank, and we're in a difficult moment, and I think things are going to get very bad everywhere, really. That said, I think that there is a lot of hope to be found in the fact that this genocide has mobilized millions and millions and millions of people, on a weekly basis for 15 months to come out. And I think that we have to take solace, as scary as this kind of new fascism that's re-emerging and taking hold in many places is, and as terrifying as this genocide and this laboratory of kind of destruction and pulverization and displacement is, and it is very scary, whether it's in Gaza or the border or the United States or elsewhere, including India. I think that we have to take solace in the fact that the powers that be are in overdrive, precisely because they know that the game is up, in that we see what's going on. There's actually massive, outside of the European Parliament and the US Congress and the mainstream media and these kind of little bubbles of elites around the world that are totally sheltered, everybody else in the world knows exactly what's going on. And they're absolutely enraged and against it. And I think we have to see this kind of backlash of empire, of the feudal oligarchs, the tech oligarchs, and all of these authoritarians around the world, as a sign that they are scared. They are scared of the people, because we are many more than they are. And so, and look at the people in Gaza. great Irish freedom fighter Bobby Sands, who said, our revenge will be the laughter of our children. And I think we have to kind of stay in that place and say, they are scared of us, and as scary as what they're doing as a reaction is, it's a sign that we actually do have the power to resist, to persevere, to overcome, and to reimagine futures that are much brighter than this misery that they have planned for us. So I think that's where I find the hope amidst this darkness.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ismail, for those powerful, powerful words, and I think for injecting much needed dose of hope and love that we need to move forward. Pranav, I'm giving you the last word. I think we may not have questions. We may not have time for audience questions today, so I apologize. Pranav, the last word.
Yeah, I think Ismail really sort of put it really well. I think that every single day with what's happening in and around with Gaza, what's happening in Western, I think I underestimate the power of human resistance and the kind of resistance that the Palestinians have. I'm a great believer saying that expect the unexpected. You might think that the mighty have arrived and they will take over completely, but I always believe that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. This is going to come to an end, it's a matter of time. They will be free. It's a long road, but we got passion on the harvest. We got to keep going. And if there's something that you can learn from the Palestinians, you can do whatever you want, you can never be able to take this way. I hope that Occupy 2 is made soon and we can showcase another film with SKD and show it to the rest of the world.
Thank you so much, Pranav. I just wanted to take a moment before we leave to thank you, Pranav. Thank you so much. I just wanted to take a moment to thank a couple of people because organizing this screening was no easy task. We've had, I don't know if there are cops in plain clothes, but if they are, hi. But they've been hounding the team, so it's not been easy. Even this short resistance of having to screen a movie was met with the might of the state. So I really wanted to thank Yamuna, Reverend Emmanuel, Leo, Zakir, Charles of putting this together. I've been on the group and contributed nothing, but I have seen how much trouble they've taken the past 2 weeks to put this event together. So thank you. And I want to give Yamuna a chance to quickly talk about the different activities that Bangalore for Peace and Justice has been doing and has planned.
Hi, so I'll make this very quick. Just first of all, thank you so much for being here, for putting up with all the technical glitches and problems and still showing up. And thank you, police, for letting us finish this. Not that I want to be thanking you, but again, just keep showing up to things and hopefully at some point there are many of us that they can actually stop us. So Bangalore for Justice and Peace has been organizing various things, protests every so often when they give us permission at Freedom Park. A signature campaign, a postcard campaign to the Prime Minister, just whatever ways that we can think of to continue to fight. And we're constantly trying to think of new ways, constantly looking for more people to join us. So yeah, very, very happy to have you here and very, very happy to hopefully see you again.
I want to close it. My church friends will be wondering what has happened to this entire concept of prayer. Okay, prayers are of varied kinds. This is my prayer. Octavio Paz, a Mexican writer, okay, says it this way. He looks at the Americans and says it this way. You drink to forget. I drink to remember. Cheers life. Inqilab Zindabad. Thank you.